Ruther, and I'm a stage manager, or I was, and I did this for 16 years professionally.
Wow, and how did you first become interested?
I became interested in it in high school. My mom signed me up to do a show, and I fell in love with it and knew from that point on that's what I wanted to do. I have a Master's of Fine Arts in Design and Technology for Theater, and that is the official degree for a stage manager. For a stage manager, you have to be very organized. You need to be able to multitask. You need to have a nurturing element to it. There's a lot of people who joke the stage manager is mom. But you have to be able to, and again, this is almost a mom type trait. You have to be able to hold authority while being nice to people. But you can't ever lose the fact that you are the one who has the authority. So years ago when I started, I made $300 a week. That was a long time ago. And at that time, that was enough to have an apartment in New York with 2 roommates. So it wasn't maybe as bad as it sounds now. I did have some family support for times when I didn't work in between shows. And in between shows, I did any job I could. I cleaned. And that's another thing you have to be willing to do when you're starting, to do whatever it takes to be able to be the artist you want to be. So I cleaned apartments, I sold retail, I waited tables, all of that. My normal day stage managing would start by 8 o'clock in the morning and not be done until about 12 o'clock at night. Because I either did summer stock or did touring. Those were the 2 things that I really specialized in. So that would mean we would rehearse one show during the day and perform another show at night. The stage manager is always the first person there and always the last person to leave. So they were very, very long days. And when you're in rehearsal and in production, there are no days off. So my normal time would be to work between 6-week stretches and 3-month stretches. Or if I was on tour, I might be on tour for 6 months. Mm-hmm. I traveled all over the world, which was absolutely incredible. If I was going to go back and do that again, I would have kept a map of all the places I was. I got to meet amazing people. We would describe it as genteel poverty because I had black tie dresses and was in the society pages and got invited to all the openings of everything, every art exhibit, every show, every symphony performance. And I, then would go home and had a very tiny 1-bedroom apartment and, had normal, just 20-something-year-old food of ramen noodles and hot dogs. So you got to do all these very fancy things, but it really wasn't your life. So it was really fun, but there's the distinction too that isn't my stuff. I'm only invited because of my position. And you don't have a lot of life outside of it. You miss a lot of family events. People ask me why I didn't have kids. Well, when most people are 20 years old and meeting people and having kids, I was on the road. I was touring. I wasn't doing those things. And that whole thing wasn't a part of my world.
And you just answered that question of being compatible with family life.
No. Traveling was really fun. And then it was really fun to me to do a show where you can call a cue. And it's very subtle, but you can hear the audience respond to it. We called Big River, and there were 400 cues in Big River. And the lighting designer had designed everything to happen on the apex of the emotion. And to time that just perfect where it changes and the audience just goes, oh, that's really cool. This is a career that has, again, gone very digital. I would have to ask stage manager friends of mine now. I'm not even sure they have books like we did. It used to be you wrote everything in, you only did it in pencil because it changed a zillion times. And then once the show was running, you went back and highlighted it all. For this is a warning, this is a standby, this is a go. And your book was completely color coordinated. And it was always a challenge to me to memorize it and see if I could I would have my lighting board operator sit next to me and go through it and keep us on, and I would see if I could just call the whole thing from memory. One, you don't really have to go on and get a master's degree to do it. So that's not an added expense you have to have. But I do think it helps to have an undergraduate degree. I think there's a well-roundedness to that it's hard to express something that you don't know. So if you can study art, study music, study just life, that helps a lot with being able to do it. And it gives you the connections to get into it.